right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of Farm Spaces. My name is Gugulethu Mahlangu, and today we're going to be speaking about cattle nutrition and health, backed by popular demand. You guys were very excited about the previous show we had and really wanted to know more information, because we couldn't unpack everything in one farm space session. So thank you to our comrade King who suggested that we do this topic because it's very important. So I'm going to hand over to our host for this evening. Comrade King, fire away.
Afternoon, everyone. So awesome. Yeah, another Farm Spaces. I just want to make a disclaimer first. I was actually ambushed into doing this. Um, yeah, this hosting thing, it's not my thing. Generally, I'm very quiet, but yeah, ambushed. You know, when like a pretty woman asks you to do something nice, you just agree, just do it anyway. So I think that's just what happened today. But yeah, here I am, and welcome to Farm Spaces, guys. So our guest today, firstly, we have Utabo from Farmer, Young Farmer, RSA, and we have Pasega Piana from the Free State, Baffontein. He's my neighbor, probably about 20 kilometers away from where I live. And we have Ukinelwe. I hope I didn't butcher your name. Yeah, it's Kinelwe.
Comrade,
Also,
Comrade King.
female farmer. Hmm.
Just so you know, you are breaking a bit. So I don't know if you can try maybe something.
I'm doing what a bit?
You're breaking, but now you're perfectly fine.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me
Okay,
still? Am I
yeah,
still fine?
yeah, you're audible. There was some noise in the background, but you're perfect now.
And the numbers have grown over the years, and we now have a feedlot, and we do a couple of exciting things at the farm. Um, so that's what I do, and yeah. But today's not about me. We just need to get knowledge from the other farmers on the lineup. So yeah, first guy, Pasega. Pasega, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome, awesome.
Evening.
I hope you're having a cold one. Are you having a cold one? I know you love your whiskey.
Yes, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? Animal health. I think the important part to start is a good vaccination program.
Hmm.
To Can you hear me? A good vaccination program is very very important. Uh, they can be found at your vet or at the local co-ops. Also give good advice. Or all the veterinary companies also supply the information. And another thing that needs to be done, Sean Morrison once told me, he works in the feedlots, and he said
Mm.
one of the most important things in in animal health is the timely identification of sick animals. He says there's no miracle
Mm.
medicine, that you have to be timely with your injections and everything. And for that, I think observation is one of the most important things. And the other thing is a cheap thermometer that you buy from any pharmacy. Those thermometers cost 50 rands or 60
Mm.
rands, and that is not a lot of money if you compare it to what the price of breeding cattle is now going for on auctions.
Mm. Mm. True. And let's talk about your herd. You have Bonsmara, correct?
Yes, we farm with Bonsmara stud cattle. The Noza Bonsmara stud is a breed name.
Okay. Just how do you guys get started?
My parents started in about 1981. It was with Afrikaner cattle, and they crossbred them with South Devons. And then that was the base. Nowadays, you can still start from that. It's just a long road if you want to
Yeah.
start from there. from base and then breed it up. But that's where we started. And then
Mm. Okay. And right now, your operation, what's the scale? Do you consider yourself as being commercial, or do you still see yourself as emerging?
we have commercial cattle, but mostly stud. But we have commercial cattle as well. We not all of our breeding animals is stud animals.
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
some of both.
Okay. And you're only focusing on Bonsmara, correct?
Yeah, only Bonsmara. We only breed Bonsmara cattle. We don't have work with any other breed.
Okay. Also, so in a year, cattle need um, proper maintenance plan for a whole year. Could you just like walk us through or talk us through your plan? For the whole year, different
Our great
seasons, your feeding plan.
right. We farm in an area that is mostly cropping is the big thing in our area. So the soils that
Mm,
are not very good for cropping, those soils were planted to grazing, and we farm mostly on that grazing. And then in the winter, when I start harvesting soybeans in April, May, my cattle will first go to the soybean stubble, and then when the soybeans is finished, we usually started harvesting maize, and then they will go onto the maize. And I am now, when I'm start working my lands again for preparing for the next season, they will go again
mm,
onto the pastures on the planted pastures that we have.
okay. And what about your dosing schedule? How does that look like in summer and in winter? Because obviously you have to change it when seasons change.
In our league program in summer, it's mainly a phosphate league that we use.
Mhm,
I use Super 18 from Furmol with a P12 with salt, and we mix the three together. That gives you some vitamins and it gives you a bit of protein, but we mainly use the Super 18 just to make the P12 more palatable. Otherwise, you don't get the right amount of P12 and if you don't get
mm,
enough
mm,
P12 into your cows during summer season, they they struggle with their condition in winter. And then as soon as the season starts changing in April, we'll change again our lick. And then when the first frosts fell, we again change our licks. And then when the cattle starts calving, we give them a production lick that have a lot more energy in them. I use Furmol's products, the Dundee lick you get in that small Furmol.
yes.
They give you that small book, the product guide, but you can also get it on the internet. And you mostly work from that. If I do have a problem, I'll contact the rep in the area. But I mostly work from that small book and adjust the mixes accordingly.
Okay. So judging from what you're saying, your cattle's well, it's a mix of grain fed and grass fed. Is that correct?
Yeah, not really grain fed. We only use the stubble after the fields are harvested. They go onto that maize stubble and they use that. We do use grain. If I in the Bonsmara system, we do a phase D growth test when you've weaned your bull calves. So in that when they in
Mm,
that phase D growth test, we use maize and a concentrate and some oil cake and maize silage as well. But we don't
mm.
use. I don't feed maize to the. We use some in the leeks, but I don't feed it to breeding animals. Only to the bulls. And when we prepare
Okay.
bulls for our sale for our annual production sale, we also use maize in preparing them for the sale.
Okay. So you only sell at your annual production sale? Do you also go to auctions? Because I'm guessing your closest auction to use like what Fleisenthal and Mayberg, Toby Mayberg.
No, we use Fleisenthal, and yeah, that is the auction house we use.
Okay, and you only do production sales.
Yeah, it's only we sell the females we sell on the auction is usually only commercial animals, but the bulls are stud. They through the Bonsmara system and everything. They registered with stud book and they have all the papers.
Okay, excellent. Right, next, Tabo. Can you hear me? Are you
Sorry,
there?
sorry.
Yes,
Yes,
I
I
can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Right, so we all know Tabo. Young is from RSA. I believe he's from Freiburg. And Tabo is actually being mentored by Chris. Chris uh, is a very successful farmer in the northwest, and he owns Lamus Bonsmara. And yeah, I believe you're actually in good hands, and you're learning a lot
Yeah,
at
quite a lot.
Lamus.
Yes, I'm learning quite a
Okay,
lot.
so tell me about the operation. What goes on at Lamus? Tell me about the animals you guys have. Tell me about how you take care of them.
Okay. With regards to the animal health program, we do have a fixed health program aligned for Lamus Bonsmaras, where we ensure that we don't have, we try as much, we have a saying that prevention is better than cure. Hence, we stock on time and in bulk. So, what the vaccination program, I'll break it down to the management of heifers, management of bulls, and the management of cows. So, with heifers, 4 to 8 months, we vaccinate them with Brucella strain 19. This is to
Mhm.
prevent, what we call brucellosis, which is an abortus disease, which is a very big problem in South Africa. And then also we also vaccinate those that are older than 8 months. We vaccinate them with RB51. But these are vaccines which are sourced, which you can actually get from government. And I always
Mhm.
tell people that you need to build a good relationship with your local vet, uh, preferably from the department, because this is a state-controlled disease. Hence, the department is doing the best actually to control such diseases. We also have what we call anthrax, black quarter. So we
Mhm.
also vaccinate on all cattle, heifers, cows, and bulls during May and July. Uh, that's also what we do at Lamus. We also control diseases such as lumpy skin, which occurs during the rainy seasons. So we need
Yes.
to vaccinate before the raining season. So what we vaccinate with is called Lumpy Vax. It's quite an expensive vaccine, but it's we always like I say, prevention is better than cure.
Mhm.
It's better to spend your last 2,000 rand for 100 cattle rather than losing your 100 cattle, which are worth more than uh, 1 million. Hence, we take this health program very seriously. We also we have what we call pasturella. This is a disease which works on the lungs of cattle. So we always vaccinate this pasturella on our bulls that are going through the phase D test. These are bulls which are weaned at 6 to 8 months and have passed an index of over 90. So this phase D feed, it's a maize-based product where we call it the muscle booster. So we put these phase D bulls on a 28 adaptation period, and then after the 28, that is for these bulls to adapt to that feed within 28 days, and then we start the intensive phase D test from after 28 days for a period of 84 days, which is about more or less 3 months. After that, we then do we then we evaluate the bulls that which have passed. That is where we bring inspectors, local inspectors, or national inspectors on the farm to inspect these bulls. Once which have failed, are immediately culled. So we're trying to keep the Bonsmara breed on a high standard. Hence, we do not sell these culled bulls. Also, with the nutrition, uh, it's very basic. It's very basic. We have what we call feeds which are used in winter, and we have feeds which are used in summer. So in summer, we use the P8 leak. It has a bit of sulfur. This is to aid for phosphate deficiencies. Why? Because there are phosphate deficiencies when the grass is green. So, listeners, it's very basic. It's very basic. We also feed in winter. We feed the protein leak. So those protein leak aids for when the grass is dry, it's brown in color. We feed these cattle, all cattle, with the protein leak. We source these feeds from Tau Mueller. We prefer to buy premixes rather than buying a lot of feed, that and that, all ingredients, and
Mm-hmm.
having to mix them, because it's very high, labor intensive. And also, with regards to the ratios and everything, you might be mixing with hands, but you won't get the correct ratio. Also, what I also
Absolutely.
wanted to tell you guys is that after these bulls go through the phase D test and the phase D feed, we then give them a production leak. We give both bulls and heifers the production leak. This production leak, it's a maintenance leak, and it's also a protein leak. So this is to maintain, that good body condition. When you put these bulls on the phase D, you cannot be putting these bulls on a phase D throughout their lives. They need to graze on felt. Like my mentor always says that these cows have to strive on the hardest conditions. Hence, we do not pamper these cattle at Lamus Bonsmaras. And it is the same thing that I'm doing on my farm. So this production dig also is sourced from Tawi Mueller. Uh, what else can I say? Any other questions that you would like to ask, Comrade?
Speaking of speak, speaking of Idao, they're really brilliant. My feedlots as well. I use Idao.
Yes.
We do not have the expertise to actually formulate our own feed.
Yes.
So outsourcing it to a company like Idao who specialize in that, is a really good idea. So yeah, that's really awesome. And speaking about
Yeah.
feed, I know that Ukenelwe. Kenelwe. She makes her own feed. That's one of her specialities, I think. So Kenelwe, can you please unmute yourself? Awesome.
Yes, I'm
So
on mute.
awesome. Hey, hello. Um, right. So could you tell me about your feed, the feed that you make for your cattle? What does it consist of? The ration. I mean, what do you put in it, and when does it change during seasons? Please just walk us through your ration.
Oh, okay. Before I mix my feed, right, I do my BSC, which is the body scoring, where I check because everything has to have the correct type of measures, right, for each and every type of animal. We identify what is their particular need at first, right, which is we do the body conditioning first. So most of the time during I plant yellow maize because it's high in vitamin, mostly vitamin A. I also have my own grass, which is I plant the smetfinger, which most of the time we plant during the planting season for winter and summer as well. And then I also use molasses, which I buy from Full Moon, and I also use salt leak, and then I mix together according to a certain percentage. Most of the time, each and every animal is close to 0.34 kg per day.
Okay. And okay, could you just break it down? Say for example, I'm I'm new in farming. I want to get into farming. Could you please explain it in a very layman way, Uguti? For heifers of maybe 10 heifers, they would need X amount. You'd need to mix this much molasses, this much alfalfa, for example. So could you just break it down in a very simple way so that people understand what exactly you mix, and maybe tell us what you mix in winter and also in the hotter seasons?
Okay. All right. For winter, we make bales from the type of grass which is the smetfinger, which is the most, I'd say, the perfect one for our cows in our area, right? From one bale, I mix 30 kg of molasses, one block of salt, and I mix together with one with 4 kg of maize meal, right? That can feed to equivalent of 15 cows. That's what we use mostly for winter because it helps in better production, better grass hay, protein, calcium, and vitamin. And also at the end of the day, it improves the soil fertility as well. So it helps me for the salt helps me with prevention of dehydration, making the cows to drink a lot of water, and it stimulates the digestive system and the body, I mean. It improves the ability to absorb minerals as well. So that's what I used mostly in winter. So the planted pastures in a different camp during summer, that's where the cows go to graze. And then, but mostly it depends on the breeding system as well, because our bulls are left behind and fed in the kraal, and then the females go out. And we start feeding from the age of 8 months, because that's the weaning and the heifer stage, and then our heifer start at 18 months as well.
Okay, what breed are you farming with?
It's mixed currently, but the dominating one is Bonsmara. I've got the Bonsmara bulls, and I've got the Santa Gertrude bulls, and then my females, the commercial ones are Bonsmaras, and then the heifers are Bonsmara, they are Beef Masters, and the Charolais.
Okay, that's pretty mixed, quite mixed. Um,
Yes, yes.
so just yeah, it's brilliant. It works. It works for some people to mix, because you gunning for different characteristics.
That's where I
Yes,
get my bulls. And then BKB, I get all my commercial cows because I prefer on auction farms rather than public auctions, because
definitely.
sometimes we buy sick animals, we buy animals that have not been vaccinated or tested for anything, and we bring in problems on the farm.
It's crazy.
Yes. So
Buying
that's
from
where I get most of my
buying from these
calls.
public auctions,
Mm,
it's madness. You don't know what you're
yes.
buying. You're just literally gambling with your money.
Exactly. That's the problem. Exactly.
Okay, so when you get these animals from let's say you've bought five heifers from Senek, and you're about to bring them to your farm, what's the process? Because you obviously they have to adapt to the environment, and you got to dose them
Hmm.
properly. Could you just walk us through your process? What you do the
You
minute
know,
you get them on the farm?
one of the best thing is that when buying from companies like Ceramic, you get a certificate. You know that the cow has been tested for fertility or pregnancy. You know that they have been vaccinated and so forth. So first thing first, when they get to the farm, because our feeding is different, I test the different types of feeding on the cow to see is it adaptable, right? And then if it adapts, then it's fine. It can graze there. Secondly, we vaccinate just a normal antibiotic, because already it comes with a certificate saying this is the date that it was vaccinated and this is what it was given, right?
Mhm.
Because in our area we struggle with parasites, so most of the time I'll just use a normal Ivomac depending on the body mass, and then I'll just use the how many milliliters depending on the body mass, and then I just vaccinate for that. And then as time goes by in different season, I use different types of vaccination for different types of seasons. In my area, because
Mm.
of the a lot of rain, I struggle with foot rot. So most of the time, that's what I deal
Yeah,
with.
Yeah, food
Yes.
rot is a big problem, especially
Yes.
with us at feedlots. Food rot is a huge problem,
Mm.
and it's very difficult to actually manage it. But I think with time and good ground management, it's possible.
Yes.
And give me a moment. So, okay, so you have mixed. You said that you have mixed breeds in your farm. Would you consider
Yes.
probably having one breed at a certain point?
Definitely, which I'm
Or
looking at the Bonsmara breed. I'm looking at the Bonsmara breed because when I got the farm from my dad, he already had mixed breed. That's why at this specific time we are selling most of them and going to Sednik and buying those Bonsmaras, the ones that are
mm,
pure breeds. Because what the goal is
mm.
also to become a stud breeder. Yes. So slowly but surely we're taking them out. We're getting them into the kraal. We make sure that they're well fed so that when they get to the market, the price is very good as well. The health is good. So I can buy Bonsmaras. So definitely, I'm considering one breed, which is the Bonsmara.
So when you talk about market, where do you sell your livestock to? Are you selling
I
to a company
mostly
like
sell them to. I sell them to a feedlot called Karen Beef. They're a very huge feedlot. They supply most of meat in South Africa. So that's where I take my winners and my heifers at Karen Meat.
They are brilliant. They are brilliant. They are people as well.
Yes, Karen Beef.
I
Yes,
can,
that's where I take them at.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then
Okay.
normally
And
the ones that I just want, to move out quickly um if the stock market is a bit low, then that's when I go to private auctions like your BKB, and some of them I
mhm.
take them back to Senik. Yes.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on growth enhancers? In our industry, it's a bit of an open secret that we use growth enhancers. Like your rail grows. What are your thoughts on products like that?
Sorry, I can't hear you clearly.
What are your thoughts on products like rail grow? The growth enhancers.
I don't use them, but anyway, I think some of them are good on bulls, right? But also, if you're using them, are we producing pure genes? Yes, they are
Okay.
enhancing our growth. Yes, they are enhancing, but aren't they doing any damage to the system? I personally don't use them. I just use the simple way, and because a breed has certain genes on its own, right? A Bonsmara and a
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brahman have different qualities. That's why you choose the breed that you prefer according to the qualities it has. So when you use an enhancer, already you are fighting its own system on producing the best quality of genes that it has. Yes, sometimes it works, sometimes it's a bit heavy. I've seen that people use certain different types of enhancers on bulls, right? And it becomes so big and heavy that when it's time to mate, it struggles because of the weight it has,
Mm.
and you get that sometimes the heifer that it's taking, it's a bit higher in height and it struggles to mate with it.
Yeah,
Yes, it does
absolutely.
help, but mm,
I mean, yeah, it's a very interesting one, with enhancers. It's
mm,
like I said, it's an open secret in our industry that it is
mm,
used, because on a daily we're chasing lots of weight every day on our
yes,
cattle so
yes,
that we can get them ready for markets. I
mm.
want to ask Pasega, what are your thoughts on growth enhancers? Pasega? Okay, I
Yes,
think it's muted.
yes, I know. I can hear you. I
Ah,
Can I
excellent. Okay.
comment on some of the or do you want to ask some questions?
No, I want to ask, what are your thoughts on growth enhancers? Products like Relgrow that are commonly used in our industry.
In Botswana and in Namibia, they can't use them. But there was a lot of work done in America and here in South Africa as well. They don't really they're safe for animal and for human or consumption, and it enhances there's no feedlot that doesn't use them. And if you're breeding, if you're selling to a feedlot and you're breeding, you want to enhance, you can easily get. I did some trials many years ago, an injection with Dectomax and the implant of growth hormone in a calf. Not breeding animals. You can't do it on breeding animals. Only animals for slaughter can those Ralgro be used. But you can easily get 200 to 300 grams a day extra growth on a calf. And if you use a calculator, that amounts to a lot of money if you're selling calves to a feedlot. But there's guidelines to use them, and I don't have a problem. We can still use them here in South Africa. So if you can gain that extra few kilograms, that enhances your productivity, and you already have the calf, so get as much as possible from him.
Okay, and with yourself, do you use enhancers in your farm?
I use, if not on breeding animals, but if we use animals for slaughter, if I have oxen or things that I only prepare for the slaughter market, I do use them, yes.
Okay, and which product would you recommend?
Ralgro is usually a starting one. You use it for on background
Yeah.
and on small calves, but that Revelor S from MSD Animal Health is the one that I use. But Sinovax from Zutus, I've also sometimes used that, but mostly I use Revelor S from MSD.
Okay. What gains are you getting from, say, for example, Ralgro? What gains are you getting with calves a day extra? And is there a huge difference?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question clearly.
When you use Ralgro on the calves, what gains are you getting? And is there a huge difference from when you just use it, when you just growing your livestock organically and with the Ralgro?
Yeah, it's about 200 grams. You can easily get 200 to 300 grams, but that was in conjunction with ivermectin or Dectomax, those anti-parasite parasite. Sorry, my Afrikaans drops me sometimes.
That's fine.
But you get it's a practice that makes money.
It does. It does. I mean, with us, products like Ralgro, we use it quite often, especially with the feedlot stock. We have to use it because we're chasing 100 days of getting us to a certain weight. So it's, yeah, I mean, it's widely used in the industry. Like I said, it's an open secret. But yeah, there's just a lot of noise about it currently. And I think there's always been noise around it. That is not great and whatnot. Right. So I want to ask Tabo. Tabo, what is your what's the game plan at Lamus? Where do you guys source your cattle, and what's the end point? Are you selling to your Spartans, your Karen beefs, or production as well, production sales as well?
You're asking me, or where you're asking Tabo?
Tabo.
I think Tabo's having network difficulties. So, because he's still a listener, but I just invited him now. So maybe we can also use this
Oh, okay.
to open up the floor. So
Get
to
questions. That'll be
yeah.
great.
So to everyone on
Okay.
the show who has questions, you guys could request to be a speaker and ask your questions live, or if you're struggling, please feel free to DM and then I'll just read them aloud. So the floor is open.
Awesome.
Can I make a few remarks about the previous speakers? Things that I said. I just want to go up, make a few points about that.
Sure,
The first
sure.
one,
Go for it.
Tabo said about that stem 19 that he uses for the brucellosis. There's a lot of controversy about stem 19 because it can give you false positives. And if you inject too late, it has to be early. If you're just too late, you get that false positive. So it is cheaper than RB51, but there's a risk involved. And we use RB51 3 times before you start breeding a heifer. That gives you almost a 90% protection. And it's a very known practice throughout the Bonsmara breeding societies. Is RB51 3 times. It's very, very safe, and it's expensive, but you certainly get your money's worth from that. And then something about that production, the leeks Tabu talked about. Most leeks are urea based, and the reason we use that urea in the mixes is because urea feeds the bacteria in the rumen of the cattle, and that helps them digesting those dry grass. And something that Knes talked about, if she buys from a respected breeder, I also buy from respected breeders, but always just make sure, even if I buy from the most prominent breeders in South Africa, before something is put with my other, I always test them if they don't have brucellosis. And bulls, I also test them for trich and brucellosis. And if you bought pregnant animals, if your vet are there to test them, just check the pregnancy as well. And she talked about that, the foot rot. I know Hendrik van Pletsen,
Yes.
he's dead, but he was quite a respected guy. He worked for Furmol and he was very knowledgeable. I know in sheep, they sometimes just talk with your feeding guys that makes your mixes, but they mix zinc sulfate. I'm not sure about the percentage, but if you mix zinc sulfate into your mixes, it will help with foot rot. It's a
Very insightful.
I just want to make those few remarks.
Oh, thank you for that. So let's just open the floor a bit to get some questions for you guys, because I'm sure our listeners want to know, want to ask a few questions. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Gugu, shoot.
So I hear you guys speaking about Bonsmara, and I really feel that, as a person who knows nothing about cattle, maybe explain the hype around Bonsmara and why you guys choose it as your breed of choice.
Okay, Tabo, are you there? Still not, yeah? Pasega,
Can I
do you want to
comment?
respond?
I can respond on that. The Afrikaner, the Bonsmara, Afrikaner is the indigenous breed. That's just like in Nguni. But they lacked meat and they lacked milk. And it was in the 1950s, Prof. Bonsma started with, he started with navorsing. He started work on the breeding program at Mara in the Northern Transvaal, because the European breeds they were using to crossbreed wasn't very adaptable to this harsh South African circumstances, the droughts and ticks and those things. And so he started that crossbreeding program at the Mara breeding station. It's near Louis Trichardt in the northern, the Limpopo, nowadays Limpopo. And that was the start of the Bonsmara. It was bred out of they used Hereford and for meat quality, improve the meat quality and the growth of the Afrikaner, and they used the milk shorthorn to increase the milk production of the Afrikaner cows. And that was the start of the breeds that are bred similarly is Beefmaster and your Santa Gertrudis, but they used the Brahman as a mother line. They didn't use the Afrikaner. I hope that answers your question.
It does. What is the weaning rate of your Bonsmara?
Between 80 and 90%, depending on the season. This year it wasn't this great. We had a few tick-borne problems. It's now for 2 years that we've been struggling to get that gal sickness vaccine from Onderste Poort, from OBP. So we had a bit of a problem, but usually it's between 80 and 90%.
There's also
Okay.
another question
Any more
that
questions?
commenting. Yes, there are more questions coming up. There are two questions. One I have for Ukinelwe because she makes her own feed. So I just wanted to ask, just a general rule of thumb when it comes to the nutrients of a cow. What kind of nutrients does a cow need? And then there is another question here by Tepiso for Ginelwe. He or she, not sure, is saying that what's the name of the place where Ginelwe buys her animals? She said it's somewhere in the Free State. So, Ginelwe?
Okay, in my feeding, when I mix, I look for phosphate, I look for protein, I look for calcium and vitamin, which helps me a lot in terms of production in pregnant cows in producing a lot of milk. The place where I buy my cows in Free State, it's called Cernik. You can Google it. They also have a breeding program. They also help people with different kind of fundings. They are part of Jobs Fund funding. They provide training and so forth. You just Google them. It's called the Cernik Group, and then you'll find out about them on Google.
About the Senate group, I just want to add, they have a really cool program, especially for people that actually own farms or you just bought your first farm, where they give you a couple of heifers and, then you work together. So it is really worth looking at. I think their website is senic.co.za.
Yeah.
That
Or
S
can
the
also
S
that
E
add
R
on that.
N I C K.
Can also add
Sure,
on
go
that
for it.
when they give you heifers, it depends on the type of level you are at. There's tier one, tier two, tier three. I'm a part of tier three,
Yes.
whereby you get funding for infrastructure, you get heifers together with a bull, and you get a program and an amenity and so forth. Tier one, it's just normal training and a certificate. Tier two, it's monthly income for 12 months, around
Yes.
about 3.5 for your succeeder, and 4,000 for the owner of the farm. You also do an 8 months course, and then you do a 2 weeks course. In order for you to be a part of tier three, your process on how you manage your farm, how you manage your cows and everything, you are selected. You do not qualify. You are selected, and then only when you are selected, you qualify for tier three to get heifers and a bull, and the 350,000 for infrastructure, and also a monthly income of 12 months.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, I think most us farmers who are on Twitter, we get a lot of questions in our DM, and the most popular question is, where do I get funding, or how do I get a farm? So I think having having I think you guys should have a look at Scenic. They might be able to assist, and I also know that Karen Beef as well. They do have programs similar, but they're not as more detailed as the Scenic one. They're not as helpful as the Scenic one. That's just my personal view. Yeah, in it. So, another question for Ukenelwe. As much as you make your own feed, do you also have a grazing schedule? And how do you lay out your grazing schedule?
My grazing are according to different camps. I've got 11 camps. Um, and because I'm breeding with different, what you call this, different breeds. Each
Yes.
and every breed has got its different camp. Because another camp is a Lucerne, the other camp is Smartfinger. Because take them from like Scenic, they use ESN, right? So when it comes to it's hard for them to adapt to the Smartfinger grazing. So that's why I put them according to different breeds and different grazing. So it's
Okay.
according to
Oh,
seasons. When this I don't wait it I don't wait until the grazing is flat. I I match until a certain height, and then I move them to a different one. Just like that. They are rotating.
sheesh. Out of curiosity, what's the size of your farm? How many hectares is it? Because 11 camps is quite a bit.
Yes, for grazing, it's 405, and then I leased another 150, so I can say it's 555.
That's a good amount. Yeah, that's a good
Yes,
size.
yeah.
Pasega.
Yes.
We have more questions, but
Worst.
Sorry.
Sure. One more question for Pasega. What's your worst health and nutrition mistake? Worst mistake ever made?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Sure. What is your worst health and nutrition mistake that you've ever made on your farm?
The worst mistake.
Health and nutrition mistake.
Yeah, nutrition. I think is grazing your camps too hard. You damage your. And another thing is I don't graze sheep anymore on my pastures. It's sheep is very hard on your veld. It is it's they too much too hard. Cattle is not. If you I use a grazing program there. I rest half of my from August to August. One half of the farm I doesn't graze, and then in August I change camps, and they get into new camps, and then I graze the other half rests for a full year. That is my and that increases your. I have pastures here that was planted in the 80s without any fertilizer, and we still get very very good carrying capacity out of them.
Okay, that's awesome. Are there any questions, Gugu?
Yes, there are quite a few questions, so please bear with me. Sweetfeld
Sure.
Farming asked, how do I test female cows for brucellosis and trichomonasis? Is it expensive?
Ganelwe, would you like to answer that?
I can answer that.
Because
Sorry,
okay.
Okay.
no, I don't know if the government in Webstad they not that government used to have veterinary services that did it, but nowadays we mostly use commercial veterinarians to do it. But I don't know how the government service delivery is in other areas, but in our area it's not that good. So we mostly use private guys to do that testing. Does it answer the question?
Okay. Yes, it does.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. And here's another question from Tladi M. He wants to know to Ginelwe where we can buy Smith finger and is planted during which season?
I plant during summer for winter grazing. I don't know if the different co-ops do they sell the Smith finger grass. I found it on the farms when we got it back in 2007, and I'm still continuing with it. So I don't sell the bales to people yet, but that's something that I would like to do. So when I have, I would say that I have some. But you can ask around or Google up around people in your area. But most of the people that I know, they sell Lucerne more than Smetfinger.
Yeah.
I
Lucerne
can
is quite
comment there.
popular.
The Van Rooyen family from Klokkelaan. You can Google it. It's Umpukani. They are breeders of Smithsfinger seed. But just check the Landbou Weekblad or the Farmers Weekly. There's a lot of guys that sell seed that harvested Smithsfinger seed and sell it. You don't get the good stand the first year, but by the second year they're usually very good. Um, I've planted a lot of it, but it's a whole other topic if you want to talk about planting Smithsvinger. There's a lot of, but I think the best that Hans van Rooyen, he used to be a Bonsmara breeder as well, but he sold his stud. He can give you a lot of at Umpukani. They have a lot of information about Smithsvinger and how to start them and how to plant them and all of it. They're very knowledgeable about it.
Okay, could you repeat that name?
That's Umpukani, from Klokkelaan, but it's Hans van Rooyen.
Hans van Rooyen. Okay. I'll definitely have a look at them as well. Any more questions, Google? Google?
Yes,
Any more
yes,
questions?
yeah, there are questions. So sure, okay. Thorny is asking, can you ask one of the guys who spoke about vaccination and how he gets it? Can you ask him to elaborate a bit on it, please?
Okay, who'd like to take that question?
I can. It's very. Can I give you in short, my vaccination program for the
Sure.
summer? I use Anthrax or something like that. Then that lumpy skin disease and Vibrin, and then that for the tick-borne diseases, that gall sickness. And we use multimin and vitamin A. That is the first one. Then you wait 2 weeks, and then I do that Rift Valley fever, 3-day stiffness. I can't remember but 3-day stiffness. That is also a disease, and I do Bovishield and ivermectin, and then RB51 for my IFAS. That's on the second injection 2 weeks later. That's my summer, mostly my summer vaccination program.
What about your winter program? Pasega?
Yes, sorry.
What about your winter program? Because our cattle actually suffer in winter, and they don't eat much, and they need assistance. So what do you do in the winter? What's your program like?
In winter, before they come to before the soybean fields, I also do a multimin and a vitamin A, and I do again a ivermectin type dose, and I give them one shot ultra. It helps with that for diseases of the stomach, and I do a pastorella. I use Onderstepoort OBP. I have a very good it's a very good pastorella, cattle pastorella, that I use with it in winter. So I only do that one shot ultra, or Covexin, or Multicloss is the same. They have those for winter, and then your vitamins and minerals.
Okay, see, the meds that you've mentioned, these are quite expensive. They're very expensive. I know for a fact. Our bill is massive every month from just animal health. What would you recommend emerging farmer uses in winter, for example? Something that's much cheaper, not as expensive as the most popular brands.
The best is if you have a rep in your area that sells medicine, they usually can advise you best, or your vet. Your vet, he studied 7 years, so he have most of the and compare the prices. The other thing is check at your local co-op or where you buy your medicines, and check the actives. If the active are the same and you can get it cheaper, buy the cheaper product. Arthur de Villiers, the known Bronsmara breeder, always said there's not a lot of money to be made in cattle, but there's a lot of money to be saved. So always check the prices of the different products.
True. And Kinelwe, what would you recommend for dosing in summer?
Okay, just like Paseka mentioned, I use most of the stuff that he does. The lumpy skin, the vitamin A, the vitamin and so forth. One thing I can say is that when you buy your medication, always ask your vet which one is effective, depending on your area. So most of the time when I buy medication, it has to be long shot because it's very effective, especially when it comes to stiffness. One of my bulls, my Hereford bulls, I used to have one, struggled from 3 days stiffness, which continued more than 3 days. So the kind of medication that they gave me was not long shot. So it was not that really effective, and it was struggling with its behind. So it barely could walk. So always make sure when you go to your vet, ask which one is way effective so that also you save money, because you might get medication but you keep on buying because it's not healing the way it's supposed to be. So I ended up taking it up for slaughter.
Best option, really. Culling sometimes does work. It does the trick.
Yes.
So
Okay, I have a question. My DM.
just to follow up on
Okay, go ahead.
what Paseka was sharing, Raymond wants to know if Paseka would be so kind to share his vaccination program, like maybe online or via email.
I don't know if I can DM it to you, Gugu, and then you can share it of those that that wants to you could, if they contact you, then you can just share it from them. Something else that I just want to tell about vaccination, or there's a company, Design Biologics, that also manufacture a lot of these vaccines that OBP, honest support biological products, sometimes their supply is not that reliable. So you can get a lot of, if you can't get the OBP product, remember Design Biologics. They're also they're a private company that supplies as well.
Designed by Logics.
Yes, Design Biologics. But I'll when we finish here, I'll DM the program to Gugu.
Okay, excellent. Or you can actually just put it up on your Twitter feed. Just post it as a post, or post the
I can do
link,
that as well.
so
Yeah,
that
I'll
everybody
do
can
that.
just go there.
I can do
I
that
think
as
that's
well.
much easier, so that everybody can just then see it instead of everybody going to Google's DMs and asking.
All right, I'll post it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's I'll just post it.
Is Tabo back?
Oh, can I please add something to Paseka?
Go for it.
I not only not to Paseka in general, but to farmers mostly. Not every disease requires Ivomac or an antibiotic. Okay, so please, may they please stop using it, because mostly it's Ivomac antibiotic. It's not always the case. If you cannot afford a vet, try your local government to come and check. There are also animal specialists who can come and check whatever that's going on. Stop buying Ivomac for everything. It does not help.
True, and it's expensive as well.
Exactly.
So I have a question. Which is on my DMs. So if your animal is, say for example, your animal is, you wake up one morning and it's on the ground. Your cow's on the ground and it's not moving. It's tired. What's the first plan of action?
I had that situation a few days ago because I was not on the
Yeah.
farm. When I got to the farm, it gave birth 2 weeks back. It couldn't move, it couldn't do anything. So I asked them, the people who take care of the animal, what did you feed it? Because since it gave birth, it doesn't go out to graze, it's within the holding pen. And when I checked what they fed, they gave it a lot of maize. Maize, when it's a lot, it builds up some acid
Bloats.
inside.
Bloats. Yep.
Yes. So the first thing that I did was to give it bicarbonate. I
It
mixed it in
works.
water. It drank bicarbonate. After a few hours, it stood up and everything was back to normal. So mostly some of the things are within the holding pen that causes the problem. So you have to check from there.
Okay. And Pasega, what would you recommend? Cows just sitting on the floor, doesn't want to stand up, and it's very weak. Plan of action. What do you do? What would you recommend?
Usually, I start with I give them an antibiotic. It usually happens with calving with a IV if she had a terrible or a difficult calving. I use an antibiotic and I give a Cairo oligo is a vitamin that helps them recover, and I give them cortisone
Yes.
as well. But the big thing is I use a protter. You have to. It may sound harsh. But if you prod them, they move, because when they lie down, that all the nerve endings go dead, and they go like when you sit on your legs in a car, they
Pins and
go dead.
needles.
And the same happens to a cow, and then they can't move. So 4 or 5 times a day, 6 times a day, as many as you can. Just prod her with a prodder that she can move and that they get some circulation into her body. We usually, it's not guaranteed that it will help, but I have with that the best results from many years experience. That's usually for me that works the best. And give them water to drink. They must have water and feed as
Yes.
well.
And also, I would also add Buy Boost. Buy Boost does a trick for me for animals like that. You know, and antibiotics. Which antibiotics would you recommend? Because I know you spoke about antibiotics as well.
It depends. I learned that from Sean Morrison. Use your thermometer and check the degrees, and then you know if it's not that high, you can use a tetracycline. Otherwise, and it
Yeah.
depends, or you use a white diplocillin or something like that. But if you get especially with Pasteurella, with lung diseases, and you can see the snot in their eye, in their noses, we use that new floor or race floor or something like that to stop it. But that's what I said at the start. The thermometer, it is cheap and it can save you a lot of money. And then it helps. And it's easy. If you have degrees and you're not sure, you can phone your vet and you say, right, this is the symptoms, this is the degrees, and he can help you more easily if you give them that information.
Excellent. Yeah, and you're actually quite right. Thermometers are quite cheap. If you go to any hinterland, well, we have a hinterland here in the Free State. That's quite common. There you'll find one for piss money. So yeah, I would recommend that everybody does get a thermometer. Any more questions?
Yes, there are plenty of questions. Let me just check here quickly. Sorry. Yeah, so there's a question here by Tammy. He wants to know why only Smitfinger grass versus the other grasses. And for Limpopo area, what would be the best grass for cattle?
Smith's finger have there's some guys that plant some panigum grasses here as well. It's now for the Free State. This Western Free State part where I farm, Smith's finger have the longest longevity, and you get the longest production from it. Panicum grasses don't have the legs. That you get for 4 or 5 years, you get very good production, and then it tapers out. So Smith's finger is you get the longest legs from it.
Okay, can I please add to what Paseka has said?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, when it comes to the Smitfinger, when you harvest, the seed mostly just falls down. So when it rains, it comes back again. So when it comes to the lifespan, you don't have to struggle every year by planting. It's been almost 5 years that I haven't planted it. It just grows back normally every year. After rain season, it grows quickly.
I can add there what
So
you say
what's
is true. When my father first started planting Smith's finger, the agricultural, the extent block, if only one plant per square meter, and your grazing is right. So Smith's finger is it seeds itself and it goes on.
Okay, perfect.
okay?
There's an by Sbusiso. He's saying that he really wants to know what form of security you guys are using, because where he's living, there's currently a high number of theft. So if you guys could help him with that.
Theft is such a huge problem, though. Everywhere in general. Kenelwe, how's the theft rate in your area? Are there community forums and farm watch?
Yes, we do have watches. We do have days whereby I also patrol during the night and so forth. I think I'm a victim. I've struggled. I've been struck so many times. Over 60 cows gone at once. What they do sometimes is that they slaughter them on the farm, or sometimes they slaughter them in the cow. They slaughter them while they're still alive, hey? So you can imagine the cruelty. So most of the time it's the patrols here and there, and then most importantly, as a farm, I think we always have to protect ourselves. Even if you log, they cut it. Even if there's an electric fence, I don't know how do they jump it. They're not afraid of being shocked and not so not. But also, for me, I have a firearm with my father, so it works very well because they also come armed. They don't ask questions, they just shoot to kill. So the only way to protect ourselves is to fire back. So but most of the time I make sure that my crawl has a double system, a lock and chains. So by the time, and we also have an alarm, and some of the cows have a tracker. So by the time you get there to the crawl, I think we have already noticed, so that we can
Mm.
take action. Yeah.
Pasega, how do you guys combat crime in your area?
Counting is very important. Knowing your end, locking gates. Um, I know friends of mine have that collars that you put around the cattle from Agrisec, or I don't know what is that company called. You put the collar.
And Vox as well.
Yeah, that is a very effective thing, because he says when you have collars around your cattle, the thieves don't go to you; they go to your neighbor that don't have collars. So that is one way of scaring them off.
True, does work. Any more questions, Google?
Yes, we do have questions. We have one from Usbusiso. He's saying that is the Ivermec and terramycin not overrated, and what are the implications of continuously using?
Hmm.
Ivermac is not the
Okay.
only um, thing you have. There's you can dose through their mouths as well. There's other um, medicines you can use. And Ivermac is not, the terramycin is not the only antibiotic. It depends what the disease is. That's what I said. And the degrees, what kind of disease, that will depends on what kind of antibiotic you use. You're shooting with a shotgun if you're only using terramycin and ivermectin. So you have to be more, if you know the degrees and you know the diseases, you can know which ones to use and what is more applicable to the situation.
True. And I mean, I would just also suggest that, when you're shopping for meds, especially for animals, you should always turn around and just look at the ingredients, look at the active ingredients, and compare the alternative product with, the celebrity products, so to speak. See, are the ingredients the same? Do they contain similar items? And chances are you'd actually save money by doing that. But obviously, we're driven by brands and better marketing, so that's why other brands are more popular than others and now preferred than others.
That is important, but that's what I said from the start also. Get a good veterinarian, and that veterinarian will give you good advice. He will, and they studied for 7 years, so they have the know-how. They know which medicines to use, and speak to a good veterinarian. You don't have to speak to him every time, but have a good veterinarian on your telephone and let him work with your herd, and that will, if you have a problem, he knows he will answer the phone and he will give you good advice. Well, that's usually what happens.
Right. Speaking about vets, Kinelwe, I want to know: do you use state vet or private vet?
I used to use a state vet, but they don't always come to our services. Their services are
Yep.
very poor.
Always busy.
Sometimes when you go to them, they simply tell you, send me a video. How do you check an animal through a video? I don't know. So I
Mm.
use a private vet.
Okay, and what are you paying a month for that private service, and what does that package include?
It includes literally everything. They check for literally everything during, after mating period. They check for pregnancies. They also help me if I want to do artificial inseminations and so forth. So they charge me according to the distance, because I'm a bit far from town and they're a bit far from me. It's like they charge me for petrol. And if I don't have the instruments or the medication on the farm, and then they'll tell me what to buy to make the price a bit lower for me. But if they come with everything, yay, 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 yay.
It becomes expensive, I know.
Yes.
So, what's your average cost per month on vets?
I hardly go to the vet every month. It depends. Because when the cows come in, we check if there's everything is okay, if there's anything they're struggling with. So from my advantage is that I've learned a lot of things along with my vet, who have taught me how to check for pregnancy, also artificial
Yeah.
insemination and certain diseases. So I just sometimes I can take about 3 months without seeing a vet and everything is still intact. But most of the time, if it happens that I need to go to a vet and it's just one animal or two, it's close to 4 or 6K.
Expected.
Yeah.
Pricey, but expected. Pasega and yourself, state vets or government vets, sorry, or private vets, and how much are you spending on vets every quarter? I think that's a better time frame, a quarter.
It depends. I use only private vets, and we use them to do the pregnancy and then a BM test, and then I on another breeding season I do a pregnancy as well. It depends on how many cattle, and he tries to do, and then I do the fertility on the bulls and checking the bulls for check the bulls for the sale is expensive. I don't have my I didn't bring that amounts with me, but it is an expensive, especially for the breeding bulls and the bulls we sell on the auction. But we use them not say 3 or 4 times a year, and then you can call him if you have a problem. That's usually what I do. If I then he charge you for that, like a consultancy fee and what he uses.
Okay, so how much would your average quarterly cost be?
A visit for pregnancy, it's usually about 5 to 8 thousand rands, but then it's the whole day. Maybe a bit more. I pay one part and my dad pay another part. Yeah, maybe 15,000 I think for a day, but then he does a lot of cattle on that day if we use him for a whole day.
Yeah, he'd have to really work for his money.
Yeah.
15,000 is a lot. Okay, excellent. Gugu, more questions on your end?
Yeah, there is a question from Nepuko. Hi, Nepuko.
Hello, hi, good evening from Kenya. Now, I just wanted to add on to the conversation about vets. So in Kenya, we're supposed to have agricultural extension officers. We also had range management officers back in the 70s and 80s when my parents were running the farm. And they used to really help out with livestocking and disease management and pest control and all that. However, things have changed. We do have access to private vets, but they're not readily accessible, especially where our farm is. So what we did is we bought a couple of books. So there's one, it's called Where There Is No Vet by Bill Force, and it's published by Oxfam. I should be able to post photos on my timeline. And the other book is called Veterinary Medicine. It's quite a large book, but we've had it for ages. So anytime we have any challenges, we just refer to the books and see what the problem could be. We also learn about the differences in disease. And then we have like the private vet come around when we need them to do the vaccination for the herd. Now, on to my questions. I wanted to ask, on average, how many workers do you employ, and what's the different skill level from, let's say, casual to semi-skilled to skilled? And then, yes, if I remember the next question, I'll ask again.
Awesome. Who would like to answer that? Let's start off with Pasega.
It depends. We have a cropping and cattle, so they must be able to work with animals if they want to. If they do the in the animal side, it depends. The skill mostly we teach them ourselves. The skills we need. You don't get people that have the skills already. So mostly we teach them in house what they need to know and the protocols and everything to do. You don't get skilled people is very scarce.
It's very scarce, yes. I think that's why we've seen in recent years a lot of farmers getting employees from out of the country, from neighboring countries like Zim and Mozambique. Yeah, that's quite right. Kinelwe, and yourself, your employees, how big is your
So
workforce?
my
And what
employees,
skills do you have?
it depends on it depends. Oh, permanent, I've got 4, 5 including myself, and then others are seasonal during harvest. So most of my employees, we all look at the skill of knowing how to plant, how to work with a tractor, and knowing your animals. And others, obviously, we teach them on different types of diseases, different medication, and so forth. But mostly it has to be driving a tractor, planting, and how to operate all the machineries, because sometimes they say they know how to, but when you give them the tractor and you say go in and do what, it becomes a problem, and then they end up making a mess. And when something is broken and fixing it, it's another expense.
Thank you so much, guys. Nepuko, does that answer your question?
Yes, I am kind of satisfied. Thank you so much for answering me.
Napuka, can you please post on your timeline?
Yes,
On your timeline? Yes.
yes,
Could you please post the books that you were talking about so everybody can actually see what they are?
yes,
They sound very interesting.
yes. I'm just doing that right now. One of them has been covered over,
Awesome.
but I should be able to get a copy online so that you can see the cover.
Awesome. Okay. Any more questions, Google?
Yes, I'm gonna just read 2 more questions, and I think then we can
Sure.
call it a night. Okay, the second last question is from Percy. He's like, evening. So they burned all my grazing camps. The only thing that's left is small green grass that's showing up after few showers past week. I heard it's toxic, and now they're just taking anything green. Are there meds I can inject with?
Okay. Who would like to take that question? Google, could you repeat the question?
I think he was just saying that his grazing camps have been burned, and there is a few green grasses showing up, and his cattle is eating that. Is it toxic? Is it not toxic?
I don't
From
think
my experience, it's not toxic.
I don't think it's toxic, but you're doing. If that's the only thing you have to use it. But you're doing damage, long term damage to your felt. But
Yeah.
that in the olden days they used to graze sheep on green grass and that ash from the burnt felt to deworm them. They used it as a deworming middle. I'm talking now about 100 years or more ago. So I don't think, no, it's not, as far to my knowledge, it's not toxic.
Yeah, it's not. I'd also say it's not toxic. I mean, cows aren't absolute idiots. But I would suggest that, if that's the case, he needs to supplement their feed. So he needs to bring a couple of bales for more feed.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. So the last question that I'm gonna read out is can cows live on grass alone? Speaking from a communal farming perspective, what is the cheapest way to feed cattle? Grain, supplementing it, or feeding it with hay?
Ganelo, would you like to take that question?
I think okay. I come from a village in Limpopo, and by looking at those animals, their health wise, their body condition, I wouldn't say it's good. You can see every bone on their body. So, for people in common ages, okay, right now I'm advertising myself. I'm starting a foundation to form to help people during to help people in commodages and to help people during failed fires and so forth. So hopefully we'll have a plan for them to help them with supplements once we have enough funding. But I think they somehow need to be supplemented because I don't think they make a lot of money from selling those cows. And in terms of the nutritions they need, I don't think they get enough. And in terms of their water, I don't think it's also clean. So hopefully we'll be able to help them.
And speaking of that, Ginera, thank you so much, and all the best with that. And you're doing so well, and hopefully you can reach the farmers that really need it. We have Norma J who'd like to speak something. So Norma, I'm inviting you to be a speaker now. Maybe you can just also add on to what you're doing and what you're busy with. So if Norma can just come on and say a few things.
The usual suspect.
Okay, but whilst we wait for her, um, so what I wanted to know, because now the topic is cattle nutrition and health. How, how do we tell that our cattle is suffering? What if it looks healthy? What are the maybe kind of a rule of thumb to check for that your cattle is healthy? Let's say you can't really afford a vet, but what are the signs that you need to be looking out for?
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
I think
We
fat
can.
cattle
Hello, Norma.
Oh, I apologize. My network here on the farm is up and down today. I've been actually asking Google to just have 5 minutes of the space before we close off, because recently I bumped into a lady's page. Her name is Masa Chaba, and she does a food drive out in Alex where she feeds hungry kids. In a squatter camp, and it had me thinking that as farmers, we have so many, so much produce that gets turned back from the market that is still consumable by human beings that I consume all the time. That I was compelled to kind of come to the space and talk about some sort of food drive. Like, what do we do with our class B, crops or anything that is not market worthy? Are there any farmers in Gauteng that are willing to come together, and we can go out to Masichaba and help her out with some cabbage or some tomatoes or whatever we have in access on our farms. And I also had a couple of people from the Eastern Cape, so I actually was thinking that Farm Spaces is the perfect platform to be able to talk about these things, because giving back to our local communities or the community is literally a very important thing, and we as farmers can literally do that from the little extra that we had. So I guess the reason why I'm here is just to say, if there's any farmers that would like to help Masichaba, she's out in Alex, please do reach out to me in the DMs. And Hi guys, sorry. I'm not sure. Did you guys hear that or anything I said?
Yes, we did. We did. You can continue.
Yes. So I was saying I'm not sure if there's any farmers, within Gauteng. I know there's a lady that reached out to me from the Eastern Cape as well, asking for food or anything like that. As she's also helping, feed kids in her local community out of pocket. So, something like a food drive. It's something I haven't really had so much time on my hands to be able to put thoughts on pen and paper in terms of how this is going to work. But particularly Masichaba in Alex, I am in Gauteng. I'm very happy to donate a couple of chickens every time I've got some, some crops if I've got some. And if there's any farmers that are willing to help me in this initiative, please do hit me out, hit me up, DM me so that we can at least try and make a difference in our local communities, especially during these hard times. A lot of people lost their jobs. Some people are struggling to even put food on the table. So it's something that I'm really, really compelled. I felt compelled to come and talk about on Farm Spaces. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to join me in this initiative, any farmers, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, wherever, I really believe that we could help our local communities with food or what we can, do from our own farms or pockets. Thank you so much.
Wow, that is so awesome, Noma. Please post the details on your feed, and guys, please go ahead, support if you can. Yeah, really great initiative.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Noma, for just sharing and just reminding us of that, because there is a lot of on-farm waste, and if we can, put it to good use, I feel like we should. So, guys, please just contact Noma. Noma also just post about it, and then we'll just share it. And now, just one last question before we go, just to wrap up cattle nutrition and health. We really need to look out for the signs. So, just a few tips before we close the session.
Hungry
What
kids and
we look
Alex,
out for
every
when it comes to
being out of pocket, like we're farmers. I can give her 5 cabbages. I can give her chickens. You know what I mean?
Actually, be a really good idea.
Noma, your mic is not muted.
All right, so I think now is just a really great time for us to sort of wrap up and just like do a little recap. Do a little recap of like the most common questions that you were asked. Let's start off with Pasega. Could you just please do a quick recap on your summer dosing plan? Paseka?
Yes, sorry. On the winter program, that was Pasturella. I did a multivitamin, vitamin A, Pasturella, and a Covexin or multi-clause or one-shot ultra. Ultra choice is the same. Those three are the same medicine. It's just from different companies. Yeah, that was the winter program. But I'll post those things early this evening or early tomorrow morning. I'll post it on my timeline. That the vaccination.
Excellent. And Kinelwe, your summer plan, your summer vax plan. Could you just do a little recap?
Always for me is make sure that you vaccinate before the rainy seasons for lumpy skin, for foot rot, and always have your vitamins ready. Take care of your animals, they'll take care of you always, because as cattle
Nice.
farmers I feel like everything depends on our health, especially when it goes to the market. Even if it comes to selling to other people, everything depends on the health. If it looks good on
Absolutely.
the outside, it's attractive to the eye, we buy. The money goes high, everybody's satisfied.
Absolutely. So could you also post your feed plan, because I know you make feed and we spoke about it. So can you please post your your ration for the different seasons, just so everybody can see it. I'll also retweet it on my page in case. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Just
And
so more
also,
people can see it.
Gugu talked about the different signs in terms of health to see whether the animals are doing good or not.
Yes.
For me, I do a body conditioning scoring, right? You need to master this thing because you only look at two things: the tail head, and the short rib, using your thumb and your fingers to check the amount of fat. So when we look at number one, it's when you touch the bones, there's a sharp touch. You know that there's absolutely no fat. But when we look at number five, and then when you touch them with your thumb and your fingers, and you feel completely nothing, you should know that it's almost buried in fatty tissues, meaning that when it's too fat, it's a problem. So you always have to weigh around between 2.5 and 3.5. So you need to master that skill. That's the skill that I use on my farm to check if there's enough fat and not overfeeding them, and then not too little as well. I'll also post it on
I
my
agree.
just to show people, and pictures as well, just to give them the knowledge.
I also agree. Mastering, that whole skill of seeing a body score. Basically a body score goes from 1 to 5. You don't want a
Yes.
5. It's usually too fat. 5's are too fat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not advisable, in cattle. And a 1 is too thin. You don't want a 1. So you want an animal in between. So a 2.5 to a 3. At 3.5, you're pushing it, but
Yes.
it's good. So yeah, that's a good range. So I think if anybody doesn't know about the body score, just Google it. You'd understand it. But it's just basic. 1 is terrible, 5 is great. So 1 is terrible, 5 is too big, and halfway is
Yes.
great.
Right.
Okay, Google. More questions, or are we done for the day?
There's a lot of questions, but unfortunately, Farm Spaces kind of has needs to get back to cooking and eating, and so I want to just say thank you so much to our guest, Pasek. You were amazing. Kinelwe, so
Yeah,
amazing. Tabo, for our farmer, youngest farmer, I think maybe he's having network problems, but he was on the
I think so
space,
too.
so maybe he struggled to come back. And to you, Comrade King, thank you. You were an amazing host.
Great, awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, to everyone, we will be posting, the vaccination programs that we've spoken about. And yeah, just I'll be retweeting it. So if you guys, just want to get catch up on what has happened, everything that our speakers have shared, they will post, and then we will just be retweeting, so you guys can just get information straight from the horse's mouth. So yeah, that's from my side. I think I'm done. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us on another episode of Farm Spaces. So to our speakers, thank you. And